Really interesting article in stuff.co.nz earlier this week, written by Paula Penfold. Paula Penfold joins us right now to have a chat about it. Good evening, Paula.
Hey, you guys, how are you?
We're good. Welcome to the show.
What a nice audience you have.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Giving you money without even being asked to.
Go on. Just go. They're just nice. Have you ever been on this before, or have I had you on the DOC? Have you come on the BHN before?
I've been on BHN, I think, once, and a couple or three times on DOC.
Yeah, when you were making those lovely documentaries about going to Russia and and all these fascinating things, we'd always talk about it. How's life at the moment at Stuff?
Life is good. Life is really busy. I'm not making those documentaries any longer, which means I'm busier in different ways.
Yep.
Doing kind of more frequent publication of journalism that's different to what I've been doing in the last few years, but I'm really enjoying it. It's invigorating because it's faster than what I've been doing for a while. And I said to my boss, he's like, daily news, as I feel like I've been whipped again to get another story out the door. But it's good. It's keeping me kind of invigorated. And it's quite, it's a different energy to it, a different adrenaline to it, and I'm liking it.
Cool. Well, from those of us who are kind of parasites who live off real journalists' work and talk about it, we want to thank you for the content. So thank you very much. Lovely.
Thank you. That's so kind.
Hey, there was a really interesting article that you certainly published this week, maybe wrote this week. The COVID inquiry hit by top-level resignations. I'll just give the three facts for people listening on the audio podcast, and I want to ask you about it. The fast facts off stuff.co.nz. The executive director and two legal counsels at the COVID Royal Commission of Inquiry have resigned. Stuff understands that shared concerns of other staff about how the inquiry is being run. They share concerns, And the Internal Affairs Minister, Brooke Van Velden, has called in the chair of the commission for answers about the inquiry's work. What's happening at this COVID inquiry? What do we need to know about that you can share with us, Paula?
I think what's happening at the COVID inquiry is that we can infer that things are not going smoothly. The information that I'm getting, it's been quite carefully reported, that story. Okay. You will have noticed.
Yep.
And so that's done for obvious reasons, that the information that we're receiving comes from people who obviously don't want to be named about it.
Yep, sure.
And I obviously won't go into any detail about who the sources are or where they are in government or outside government. But suffice it to say that when you get a tip about something like this, it's because somebody thinks that it should be in the public domain, and that's exactly what happened in this instance. And I think the reasons for that is that, there's a lot riding on this inquiry in many respects. As you alluded to, I think it was a bit of a bottom line for New Zealand First in the coalition negotiations. And so if there are ructions in the inquiry, and there are, because this information wouldn't be coming to me if there weren't, then I think that it has the potential to have some political consequences.
Are you sort of seen as a location to put this information, because of course fire and fury investigations you've done into this world of COVID and what's been going on pre this, are you sort of a lightning rod for people who want to leak stuff now?
I think that was unconnected, to be honest.
Okay.
In this case, I mean, yes, I'm seen as someone somewhere, an outlet who to whom information can be leaked. But I don't think in this instance that it had anything to do with the work that we did, for instance, on Fire and Fury. Okay. I think it's probably just more to do with the fact that, I think in a way, it might be to do with the fact that I'm outside Wellington, and sometimes it's easier to leak stuff to somebody who's not right in that nest. Yeah.
The executive director and two legal counsels at the COVID Commission have quit. Helen Porticki, Kirsty McDonald KC, and Nick Whittington. I thought what might be interesting to do is actually just tell the public from your reporting what these people are and who they're about. So what I might just do is read the paragraphs from the article, Because it was like, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but if like the people who were throwing their toys were kind of a bit flaky and a bit, a bit on the fringes and stuff, you go like, no, well, they're not really. These are the bona fides of these people. Portuki is an experienced public.
I didn't know that's how you pronounced bona fides.
Don't listen to me. I think you should do your own research on that. Portuki is an experienced public servant who was previously executive director at the Abuse in Care Royal Commission, and prior to that held roles at the Ministry for Ethnic Communities, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, and the Ministry for Women. MacDonald is a respected senior barrister who has been involved in numerous public inquiries and investigations, including the inquiry into Operation Burnham. And Nick Whittington is a litigator who has also assisted public inquiries, including the Royal Commission of Inquiry into the Christchurch terror attack. These are some pretty senior and pretty serious credentials for these people dropping out. Can we draw anything from that sort of hasn't already been quietly said because of where the leaks are coming from?
And I was just thinking I should clarify that word. Leaks would imply that it's coming from within.
Sure.
And I don't want to imply that because there shouldn't be any inference taken from that. It's information that's being provided to me. So forgive me for that terminology. I should correct that.
To be honest, Paula, it might have been me that said leaks. So information that you've received from sources.
Yeah.
Fair? Okay.
And I think that you're absolutely right to take from the level of seniority of the people who have resigned that there's something to see here. I mean, and that it's also been really interesting to me, and I'm in the process of writing something further about this. To do with the fact that I'm really interested in how the communications on this are being run. So I think we'll probably publish something around that at the weekend, but it's a little teaser. I'm taking something from the fact that the way that the communications are being run on this from the Department of Internal Affairs, from the Minister's Office, from Crown Law, the parties that have stake in this, my inquiries are being dealt with. I mean, it's, these days it's never that easy to get information out of communications officers.
Yeah.
But this one, there seems to be a higher than normal level of sensitivity around this. And I don't yet know the answer to the question why that would be, but you can probably, figure it out. There's a lot riding on this, as I alluded to before. And so I think there's probably a lot of work going on behind the scenes to make sure that the comms coming out on this have been run past the highest levels and are consistent throughout between the agencies.
Yeah.
But back to your question, Pat. Yes, when you've got the executive director resigning at the same time as the two counsel assisting the inquiry, those counsel assisting are, of course, appointed by the Solicitor General, so they're separate to the inquiry. They're not working for the inquiry, they're outside it, but advising. The executive director is the most senior person in the Secretariat that is running that inquiry. So those three resignations combined, or even individually, but certainly combined, you can take that as a significant sign that something's not as it should be.
Are you able to reveal, or do you have an opinion of, did they all do this together? Is it like they've gone, we can't do this? Or is it just coincident that it's happening at the same time?
Yeah, I don't know. None of them will talk to me. And I haven't got any intelligence around whether this was coordinated or not. But I think it's only, the end of February, and this phase 2 of the inquiry has only been underway for a few months now. So it's pretty early in the game for this number of resignations to have happened. So I think whether they're coordinated or not, I think it says that whatever it is, dissatisfaction and the reasons for that dissatisfaction have kicked in pretty quickly.
Yeah. Emily, are you over this at all? You got any thoughts or questions you want to ask?
I feel bad. No, I'm really out of the loop of this stuff because I kind of shut my brain off to a lot of it when I was like, oh, this is just a Winston doing Winston things, right? But I think there's something probably to be said about what's going on. Yeah, I'd be interested to see where this goes, really.
What you say though, the Winston doing the Winston. I mean, do you also get a sense, Paula, at all? Is this inquiry like I don't know anything about it? So this is said with my bias and a fair amount of disdain based around things that the community that feels like they've forced this referendum via Winston. So I have a fair bit of disdain there. Not for the people necessarily. I have some sympathy for those who have been fooled, etc. Let's not have that debate right now. But is there a sense that you get from most people that they don't really want to be involved in this? What are the politicians? Do they want to distance themselves from this? Is this something that Winston has gone, well, I'll get that through for those guys and then I'm going to distance myself? Is anyone taking this seriously?
All of those are really good questions, and I don't have a strong sense around that yet. I mean, certainly the opposition parties were not in favour of phase 2 of the inquiry. They felt that there had been a 700-page report released by phase 1 of the inquiry, which they thought had answered all of the questions that needed to be answered. But of course, Winston Peters, speaking to his constituency, felt, there are concerns that remain for that constituency around particularly things like vaccine injuries that they didn't feel had been addressed enough. And also Winston Peters had concerns around the previous chair of phase 1 of the inquiry. And so when it was decided that there would be phase 2, he was adamant that it needed to be a change of chairperson. And so that's when Grant Illingworth KC was brought in to chair the 3 commissioners who are running that inquiry.
According to your article, Winston says the inquiry was, quote, far too narrow in scope and remains compromised. We disagree with allowing the current inquiry to simply continue as phase 1 is in its current form, the current chair remaining, as you're saying, in place, and further extension of its report back period. I also just get the sense, and again, no knowledge, no background, I get the sense that the community that want this new inquiry to go through are never going to be satisfied with the outcomes. Whatever outcomes come for them, when you're talking about vaccine injured and the idea around vaccine deaths and that kind of, they're never going to be satisfied. So what's going to happen next election? Are we going to have a 3rd one or a 4th one? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're going to run out of appetite for that pretty quickly. I mean, the budget for this one is $14 million. So I don't think there'd be much of a public appetite for a 3rd inquiry. I think what's kind of interesting, which is also mentioned in this report and speaks to another angle from which there might be, a fairly significant sign of concern, is that the minister conceded in a statement to me earlier this week in response to a number of questions that she had indeed called the chair in for reassurances that the report of phase 2 would be delivered on budget and on time, which is due to be February 2026. She said that there had been information in the quarterly report that led her to seek those reassurances. And I think that, again, is quite significant this early on in the piece, that the minister, she's not calling it a please explain meeting, but it sounds very much to me like it was. It's significant that that's happening this early on.
And is Brooke Van Velden, is she all over this in support of it as well? Or is it something that you feel that's been handed off to her and now she just has to kind of say, well, this is my job, I need to do it?
Yeah, I'd love to know that. I'd love to have a conversation with her about that. I mean, my feeling is that it might be a bit of the latter. But she's doing at this point what she has to do, which is to keep it accountable to its schedule and to its budget. If that can be done, if it is the case that some of the dissatisfaction and concerns that I'm hearing about are not satisfied, improved, fixed, then, Aisha Verrill, Labour's spokesperson, is already saying that there needs to be an investigation into what's going on here.
Yep.
I think, if the sharing of information with me continues and it becomes a further embarrassment, really, for the coalition government, which agreed for this inquiry, phase 2 of this inquiry, to be conducted, if those questions continue, then you're going to see some you're going to see some action at the most senior political levels to try and figure this out. Or, I mean, yeah, no, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves just yet.
I was just going to say that, but have you seen the leadership at the most senior levels? I mean, we've got the Treaty Principles Bill that they're trying to run away from. We've got this that they're trying to run away from. And yet those minor parties seem to run a few rings around our hairless leader. So, because what I was going to say is I find it interesting that Brooke Van Velden, her main concern about this is on budget and on time. But then I went, oh, actually, that's pretty much what this government's doing the whole time. It's all just about budgets and nothing else, whether it be a good or bad outcome. So what do you say?
Just to reference something, Pat, that you mentioned just before, and to circle back to, whether this was information that was supplied to me because of that Fire and Fury reporting into the sort of, freedom movement. Some of the people involved in that community have made exactly that assumption that I've done this reporting because I'm desperate to have the inquiry undermined. Which is it's interesting to me that there should be that kind of. They almost give me too much credit. It's like I don't care. I'm just doing my job when something's newsworthy, and it's newsworthy when there are 3 resignations at this level and an inquiry of this importance.
But it's also, like I just said, and we don't need to belabor the point at all, but that community will never be satisfied. I was in a room the other day where 3 or 4 of the people were in part of that community, or at least that community adjacent, and it's all still to this day Fauci. It's all still, why did Biden then, the Biden crime family, it's all still Jab Cinder. It's as relevant to them today as literally 4 years ago, and that's why I think they'll never be satisfied.
Which is quite interesting too when you look at it in the context of the findings of the first report of the COVID inquiry, because it acknowledges that. It acknowledges the fracture in our society. It acknowledges the harm caused to social cohesion. And you are still seeing the evidence of that today, and precisely those conversations that you're talking about. So in a way, you would have thought that there should have been much in that first report that would have appeased that community. But of course, there was plenty that didn't, including the fact that it concluded that thousands of lives had been saved by the way the response to the pandemic was run. Equally, it made plenty of criticisms as well. So I think that's a fair conclusion that, some people will never be satisfied with whatever is concluded in these reports.
Hey, Paula, it's lovely to have you on. Thanks for giving us some time this evening. We'll have you on any time to talk about anything, but this is particularly interesting.
I'm so sorry to not be particularly illuminating, but that's because I think it's very early days in this story. We've only seen literally the first story. As I alluded to, I've got a little bit more reporting coming out in the coming days, but I think this won't be I'll come back, eh? Shall I come back?
Love it.
If you'd have me when there's more to say, because I'm, pretty certain that there'll be quite a lot more to say.
Yeah. And just to leave with, Citizen Gold sent us a comment that just says, thousands of lives saved. Pfft, woke. Yeah, probably. Paula, anytime. And send me some information when you're releasing your next article in case it slips by me, and would love to have you back. Love to have you back.
Thank you. I'll chat with you offline because there's another couple of stories coming up that hopefully you might be interested in.
Of course, anytime. And of course, everyone can find your writings just at stuff.co.nz.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.